Broadcasting from the heart of Orlando, Florida, you are listening to the most electrifying show in media, A Neighbor's Choice Radio. I am your host, David Gornoski, and thank you for joining me on A Neighbor's Choice. If you'd like to call in to join in on the discussion today, we're going to have a fire-packed show today, a lot of things to get to. The number to call is 407-916-5400. That's 407-916-5400. And there's all kinds of news going on in the day, especially if you're obsessed with the swamp, folks. There was a big hearing today with Peter Strzok, the infamous FBI agent who was overseeing the Clinton email investigation at the FBI, as well as the initial investigation that led to the current special prosecutor investigation for Trump with the alleged Russian collusion. And it was a circus. I remember I was just watching the proceedings in Congress today, and you would hear the people, especially those on the Democratic Party side, they were screaming a lot, and they would clap when Peter Strzok would do an epic sermon about how there is nothing. He was very adamant. There is nothing to ever question the integrity of the FBI process. And he was basically suggesting to even hint that I had a preference is to demean the sanctity of the FBI. And that just goes to show you, folks, what we're dealing with when we fixate on Washington to get our problems solved. I mean, the FBI ostensibly was designed to protect us from actual violent criminals. To protect us, ostensibly, they tell us, from foreign autocrats like Putin and Putin's personal chef, who the intelligence officials are saying cooked up a massive a massive social media campaign to denigrate the Trump, denigrate the Democrats. But we know that it's all a theatrical farce, folks, because they have yet to find any collusion evidence between Trump and Russia. They spent millions and millions of dollars with a very partisan stacked group of investigators, and still nothing, right? And that's the whole premise of A Neighbor's Choice is don't look to Washington to solve your problems. Roll up your sleeves, use your talent that you have, and most importantly, have the courage to step outside of groupthink and solve the problems ourselves. Go out into your neighborhood, whether you're a small business owner, whether you work for a company, or you have a ministry, whatever it is, use your talent and take the courage to take it up a notch. And don't rely on Washington to solve the problems. We have to solve them ourselves. There is no big, deep threat that Trump poses in terms of trying to collude with Russia. There's no evidence of that. I mean, if there's something that comes out, great, if that happens, but there's no evidence that there's ever going to be anything of that kind. It's all just a way of trying to scapegoat Trump because he dared to defy the status quo for foreign policy. He said, hey, here's Russia. They have a lot of commonalities with our culture. They're largely Christian. They're moving more in a desire, their people are moving more and more for a desire for capitalism. We have a common enemy with terrorists that we need to deal with. Why don't we just work together? Why do we need to have this perpetual one-upmanship that only feeds the bureaucratic waste on both sides with spending that never seems to cease? So why not work together? Why not have friendship with them? And that was heresy. That was sheer heresy in the status quo halls of the swamp. The swamp wants perpetual boogeyman overseas that they can keep us scared of so that they can take our liberties and get us to be very malleable people so they can keep running their theatrics and never really dealing with problems. Because if we deal with problems, then what's the point of having them in their giant inflated trillion-dollar budgets? So look at what with Putin. I've tried to explain to you in all of my writings. I write at Daily Caller. Town Hall Finance, WorldNet Daily, several other top conservative and alternative media sites. And my premise is always trying to ground what we think about politics in the imitation of the historical person of Jesus. And so how could we do this on the issue of relationship with Russia? Well, Jesus had a principle. He called it turn the other cheek. And a lot of people think that that's some kind of Hallmark card that, and sometimes people even have the mistake to interpret that as pacifism, but it's quite the opposite. It's actually a proactive way to dismantle systems of evil, systems of violence and oppression by not mirroring the act of aggression, but allowing the act of aggression or violence to fall in on its own weight. So turning of the cheek is not about pacifism. It's not about cowering in the corner and letting someone slap you. No, there is a place for defense and self-defense within the imitation of Jesus that we can model our society through. But turning of the cheek is about dismantling power systems by allowing them to just fall on their own face. So how would you do that if you are concerned about Putin? I'll show you, very simple. If you're concerned about Putin being a threat to America, then the way you would disarm that threat is by opening up. If he tries to threaten us, what you would do is you would say, okay, we're going to open up free trade and travel. So we're going to, instead of sanctioning Russia, we're going to just open up even more trade for our companies to trade with companies in Russia and vice versa. And we're going to remove some of the barriers to travel. And what that would do is that would build unity and build alliances, and it would build camaraderie between the people of both countries even stronger. And it would eliminate Putin's ability to scapegoat America as the problem for the people of Russia. And he would have to be internally reforming himself if he wanted to stay popular. But instead, starting with the Obama administration in 2013, that we have done the opposite. We've emboldened and we've enabled Putin by sanctioning him. Because in 2013, before the Obama State Department started meddling in the Ukrainian election, we saw that the people of Russia, they had the highest disapproval ratings for Putin in many, many years. They were unsatisfied with his corruption. They wanted reform, and they wanted it now. And there was a growing, bubbling resentment towards some of the corruption that he was actually doing in the country. And then when we started throwing on the sanctions and started meddling with arming and supporting some of the overthrow in the western part of Ukraine, it naturally rallied the people, the local population of Russians, into the arms of Putin, because they feel like, well, you know, I don't like him, but he's the devil I know. He's our guy. He's my local guy, and he's corrupt. But, I mean, these guys are sanctioning us for things they shouldn't be sanctioning us for. They should mind their own business and let us run our neighborhood the way we're going to run it. And so what that does is, ever since those sanctions started in the Obama administration, it's only enabled the Putin regime to have unquestionable power. In fact, I remember I was watching the reporter Glenn Greenwald. He spoke recently, and he said that he was just over in Russia. And he said the people who are internally trying to oppose Putin, they've said that this entire Democratic-led Russian witch hunt hysteria has done a terrible thing for dismantling the internal opposition to Putin. So if you want to stop the power of Putin, you turn the other cheek by opening up free trade, free travel. You build unity between our populations, and that will cause the internal population of Russia to put pressure on Putin to reform his ways or get out. So this is how we can use common sense principles that Jesus taught us 2,000 years ago. We can apply them on the headlines today, cut through all the fog, cut through all the silly Peter Stroke jokes, and get to the real solutions that are very easy. So the number is 407-916-5400. Coming up soon, I'll be speaking with Jerry Boyer, the editor of Town Hall Finance, here on News Radio 102.5 WFLA.